Yo la team, j'espère que vous allez tous très très bien. Quel plaisir de vous retrouver après un petit moment. La dernière fois qu'on était ensemble, c'était pour fêter la norme, les amis. Salut dans le chat, j'espère que tout le monde va très très bien. Aujourd'hui, on prend un coaching par le grand maître David Bérczes. On avait déjà pris un premier coaching sur la Catalane. Et en fait, on va continuer, mais plutôt cette fois avec toutes les sous-lignes. On avait vu surtout les lignes principales. Et là, on va regarder, je vais demander à David de m'expliquer toutes les sous-lignes. Ça veut dire quoi les sous-lignes? C'est tous les coups euh, qui peuvent arriver avant la position très principale de la catalane qu'on avait vue. D'ailleurs, je mettrai sur la chaîne replay YouTube le premier cours ainsi que le deuxième. Et merci à Yellow Baron qui envoie le prime d'entrée de jeu. Merci, mon cher Yellow. Vous m'entendez? Ouais, c'est parfait. Ok, vous m'entendez bien. Écoutez, on va tout de suite essayer. On va tout de suite, bougez pas, essayer de retrouver notre ami Davido. Franchement, c'est un kiff. On est ensemble 1h30. On est bon. Je regarde en termes de. Ouais, là, on est bon aussi. Parfait. Voilà, on attend qu'il arrive, notre cher ami Davido. Et on est ready. On est carrément ready, la team. Alors, moi, je vais. Alors, ça, c'est le zoom. Ok, très, très bien. Et moi, je vais me mettre. Ouais, merci aussi à Fianchettino pour le prime. Merci les amis. Attendez, je vais vous afficher ça là. Est-ce que c'est à jour tout ça? Ouais, c'est à jour. Merci pour vos subs. En plus, je vais vous dire un truc. Je ne sais pas si vous êtes au courant. En attendant que le grand maître Davido se connecte. Alors, ouais, j'espère que vous allez bien. J'ai été jouer au basket là, juste avant. J'ai été faire un peu de basket. Je ne vais pas vous mentir, là, je suis pas au top de ma carrière. C'est aussi pour ça que j'ai pas trop livé parce que en ce moment, je dors mal ici. Il commence à faire chaud. J'hésite à m'acheter un masque pour les yeux parce que le matin, il y a de la lumière, ça me réveille, je dors tard. Là, en ce moment, je suis pas au top. Mais ok, c'est surtout. Alors, ça va être en anglais par contre, hein, les amis. Je vous annonce. J'espère que ça va pour vous, la team. Je sais que c'est pas l'idéal, mais ok. Moi, ce que j'aime bien avec Davido, c'est que c'est vraiment un spécialiste de la catalane parce qu'il joue ça avec les blancs. Donc, ah, c'est vrai, le stun, toi, tu utilises le masque? Ouais, j'ai un ventilateur, il va d'un côté, mais ventilateur, ça assèche pas mal l'air. Finalement, ventilateur, ça refroidit pas la pièce, en fait. Bon, je suis en fait, en vrai, je suis KO, mais c'est plutôt le grand maître qui va travailler. Moi, je vais essayer de me focus comme vous et de retenir le plus d'infos possible. De toute façon, vous le sentez, non? Quand je suis, ça se trouve, c'est dans ma tête. Ça se trouve, vous le sentez pas. Ah, il est là, notre ami Davido. Il est en train de se connecter à l'audio. Yo, my bro, Davido. Ah, wait. It's my fault. Now you should be able to hear me. Yes. Yes, perfect. Okay, but wait, I have to do something for the people to hear you. I think now it's fine. How are you, bro?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You are already live, my friend. What's up?
Oh, good to know. Okay,
Yes,
now no, I'm just. Yes,
yeah.
doing fine. Doing
What
fine.
are
Yeah.
all those trophies behind you? Recent ones or?
From the ancient history, from the good old era,
Yes,
when I was playing all these team championships, Europeans, World Championships for Hungary.
yes.
So back then, when I was pro professional, like
Ah,
pro.
I see.
Like very professional. So I'm keeping them to remind myself that one when I was playing. Now I hope to get trophies like this as coaching. So
Okay.
in the future.
So nice. So people tell me please in the chat if you can hear both of us perfectly before we start. But I think it's fine. sunny day today, David. I was playing basketball in Budapest. It's nice.
Oh, nice.
Ouais,
Yeah, it's beautiful weather.
yeah.
Like,
Et
feels
les
like
amis,
summer.
est-ce que le son is the sound of both of us est-ce que le pardon, je sais pas le dire en anglais. Est-ce que le son il est de la même ouais, je sais même pas le dire. Je sais même pas le dire en français non plus. Est-ce que le son le son du coach, il est un peu bas. Voilà, c'est ça que je voulais savoir. Est-ce qu'en fait, il faut qu'on nous entende à peu près pareil. Est-ce que c'est la même intensité? OK, perfect. So David, today it's oh, you want to share your screen maybe so that I can fix the setup and then it's much easier.
Yes, 1 second. Where's the bottom?
Je pense que pour l'instant, il parle pas très fort en plus David, mais il va parler un peu plus fort pendant le cours.
How can I do it?
Vous me dites si jamais il y a un décalage par la suite, parce que c'est toujours très désagréable, je trouve, d'entendre quelqu'un.
Oh, you have to
plus
enable
fort.
me, bro. Sorry to interrupt you, but you have to enable my.
Ah, yes, sure. My fault. Okay.
Did you score a lot of baskets, points?
I was playing alone, so yes, sometimes.
That yes. Fit guy.
You have
Okay.
to come here near my. It's called Onved, this park, and it's basketball, tennis table, even soccer. There is everything, even workout. We can do some workout here if you want.
Yeah,
But
sure.
but it's a bit far, maybe from your place. But okay.
Yeah, we'll find a way. Yeah, I can bike there.
Yeah, sure.
Should
Ouais, je
be
te jure, Stoud. Ok, nice. Nice, nice, nice.
should be fine now. If I make some moves, you can.
Yes, we can totally see it. Ouais, donc les amis, le cours, il va être en anglais. Donc j'espère que c'est good pour vous. Ok, perfect. Hein? We are ready. Okay, so we do
Nice.
1 hour and half, so until 30 past 1. Okay.
Okay.
We are
Yeah,
listening to you, my dear Davido.
perfect. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up so we're looking at the close Catalan, and I have been aware that you actually practice it a little bit.
Yes, I played
Is,
some, like maybe 3-4 games online. I sent it to you. Yes.
Yes, and I was kind of impressed. So maybe we can start like briefly go through them, and then
Of course.
I will summarize this and add some new plans here, and
Sure.
and
So
then we
yesterday I
will.
sent 3 of my games that I played on the first lesson we did with Davido, and I played those games against my first chess coach. It's
Okay.
against
Oh,
my
wow.
first chess coach. So okay, so he's not playing Catalan usually, but he played Catalan just for me to play those games. So okay.
Train. Oh, okay. That's nice. That's really
Yes.
nice. Okay, good. Yeah. So this is okay. The move orders. Okay, I will explain more when we get to the actual analysis. Now that's why it's really nice to play this close Catalan, because really you cannot mess up the move order. Like almost you can like blitz it out and
Yes.
no, white cannot really. I mean, white can try to trick you. More about that later, but in general, you should be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very good. We agreed that this b6 is the move to keep the
Yes.
knight flexible. So
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Knight b7 would be not precise. Knight
Mm-hmm.
d2, bishop b7, e4, knight f6, and a3, c5. Very nice. And actually,
Yes.
this is the main move. Like white doesn't have time to push e5 now because you have this open diagonal, and you already have c5. So that's the whole point, because in the line, when the knight is here, the pawn is only on c6, so there is no pressure on d7, and there is no pressure on the center.
Okay.
Here. So that's very good. Take.
So for me, e takes d5 was the first like surprise, but maybe it's main move actually. But
yeah, that's the main move. Yes, that's the main
because
move.
what else for white instead of e takes d5? Like if e5, I go knight d7.
Yeah, you can simply go knight d7. Now you see the center is already undermined, like compared to this one, right?
Yes.
Like when the pawn is here, you already have c5, so huge progress. And now is not white cannot get this typical French, this English attack.
Yes.
on the king side. It's too slow. The rook is still on f1, right? So this is very good version as we said, because in the other main line, the knight is only on e8, right? And the pawn on c6. If you
Yes.
kind of recall, and compared to
Yes.
that, this is like, I don't know, like 5
Dream
tempos.
version. And what about knight e4? Is it sometimes a move or never? Here, for
Yeah, I mean,
instance.
knight e4, probably it's playable. My only concern might be that maybe white can take on d5, but I mean, it looks to be
Looks
looks fine. I
playable at
mean, the
first
only
sight.
question would be if white can take on d5 immediately, because I wouldn't want to take back with the pawn,
Ah,
because then d takes c5, and then somehow, but it still looks fine, because maybe
okay.
you take the bishop, sorry, you take the knight, and now
Oh, why do you refuse to play just ED5? I don't see exactly why it's not. Ah, because of DC5 then?
yeah, maybe white can take here. Okay, you can take the knight, but
If I
there
take
might
with
be
the
some hanging
pawn, knight
pawns.
E4, right? If I take BC5, then knight E4, and
Oh
it's not
yes, I
good
think
for
this is
me.
not. This is kind of terrible, right?
Okay,
Because there's a pin here, so you don't even have queen d3 because you lose the bishop of
okay,
this line because of the pin here, and I mean this actually looks lost, to be
okay.
fair.
I see.
So yeah, that's always the thing. This looks very tempting, but white can take on c5, which is very I mean very tricky because of that, right? Because now you can take, if you take with the bishop or the knight, then you will have an isolated pawn, and
Yes.
it shuts down the bishop here. Okay, it's not lost definitely, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I don't
see.
know what I don't check these with the engines, but it doesn't matter, because if you don't feel comfortable, it doesn't matter what the computer says. So
Yes.
the first side, I don't fancy this position, and
Okay.
that's why maybe you can take the knight first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably bishop takes. I don't know, bishop takes, and now you can take with the pawn, but still these are hanging pawns, and in a
Yes.
good moment, maybe white can push b4 when you go knight c7, and I can completely,
So this,
uh,
if I
fix.
remember this structure, hanging pawns, sometimes we were okay with them, but sometimes we are not. And here, to me,
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't
know.
like this A6 knight. Maybe that's
In
the
this
problem.
version, yes.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
it's because now you cannot push either pawn. I mean, you can go rook c8, but now white has a lot of space. Maybe you can go h4, knight
Yes.
g5, rook
And
d1. Maybe you
also,
can play for b4 also to isolate the pawn. But that's also very typical to, just sacrifice a
yes.
pawn, not even a sacrifice,
Yes.
and then knight d4, and I don't know.
I'm
It's
trying to compare because there is one position in our prep, or I remember we allow it. I mean, it's even okay for black, but maybe there is one pair of knight or um, more in the board on the board
okay.
over the board.
For example, if you play knight d7 here,
Yes.
and he takes on
Ah,
d5,
yes, this
I
one.
would probably now consider, because as you see, compared to that, this bishop and the knight are still not
Ah, that's
developed, right?
the difference. Okay.
Develop, big development.
And here on d takes c5, I can take with b pawn.
Yeah, I think now if you compare, it's much
Yes.
better, because white needs to move the knight first to develop the bishop, or
Yes.
can go b3, but bishop b2, you can shut it down with knight c7, knight e6, right?
I see
Like here,
perfectly.
knight c7, bishop b2, maybe knight e6, and now this bishop actually locked down, and now
Okay.
it's a more, I would say it's more comfortable version for
Okay.
for black, because you get the knight on time, you put pressure on e5 pawn, and white still needed to take his time to develop the pieces, right?
Okay.
So this
So,
one is, I mean, it's complicated, very very complex position, of course,
I see.
but
So he takes d5 when he played that. I was kind of surprised because, of course, I have no experience, but actually, what
I
else?
think this
No?
is the main move, I think, but
Okay.
it's equal, right? Because I mean, he takes on c5, so he was following the same method, the same idea that if you take with the pawn, you
Then
will
the
have
knight
isolated.
a6 is out of play also. No?
Yes, and
Yes.
so now you bring the knight. It's a very good move, but it
Okay.
looks really like if you play precisely, both sides play precisely, everything is exchanged, and then probably like
Yes.
around equal. So b4, he actually
So,
played the main move. This is the
wow.
main.
So here I remember because I checked this game maybe like 3 weeks ago that on the database maybe there is two moves, and maybe knight e6 is main and knight e4 is less played, but I was checking with the computer, and maybe I'm very curious to have your opinion on that. Maybe knight e4 is a nice move, actually. I don't know.
I think 96 was also the move for AVEC when he was writing this the Catalan repertoire for white, from white's perspective. And I
Okay.
think it was 96. Okay, there was no real strong engines back then, not as strong as today. But I think even logically, 94 makes more sense because it's more active. So
Okay.
knight e6 is really settling for only a draw, right? But after 94, white has to be careful as well, because even though the position looks very dry, but you get,
Yes.
as long as the queen is on, there is always this rook c8 with tempo.
Mhm.
And also you put pressure on f2, right? Sometimes if the rook moves, you can consider sacrificing, or knight g4, some ideas like that. So
Yes.
you are also putting psychological pressure on white to make mistakes.
Okay.
So I think this 94 I really like. Of course, definitely nowadays we cannot afford ignoring the engine, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
even I was checking briefly, and
I think it was okay for the engine. Yes. Okay. So for you, it's
and here
not
bishop
shocking.
b2, and you went
Yes.
rook c8.
Yes.
And yeah, here I think was apparently not precise, but
Okay.
right, because you probably had to take on d2, I think, or so take on c4 first, I think.
Yes. What? Because okay, rook c8 looks like routine move, no? But
I
what's
think
the
after rook
problem
c8
with?
there is some maybe some d1 ideas, or I don't know, and then
my
he
queen is
take,
misplaced.
and then he might take with tempo, right? So I don't know what happened in the game. Rook c8, he played knight e5, and now you can take on c4 because e4 is hanging. So there is this flag pin here always.
Yes, this was annoying. Okay, this knight e5, and then my bishop on b7 is a problem.
Yes,
This
because
pin.
if you take here, he takes with the queen, and now there is a pin again
Okay.
on here. And now it's not very. Now it's white is better, because after rook d1 you might lose the pawn.
Okay, so maybe that's the first thing to remember for me, this idea of knight e5, and then I'm pinned with this e4 knight. So I should have taken first on d2.
Yes, no, I think take on c4, because now your knight is protected, right?
Okay.
And you also have some queen d3 ideas if he goes rook d1 or something. So he
Okay.
must take the pawn back, right? Because
Okay.
if you take the knight, you take with the bishop, and you have bishop d3 4.
Sure.
Right? So he has to take on c4 with the, I mean, queen you cannot take, so only knight, and now rook c8. So it's not very easy for white also.
Rook
You have
c8,
so
and
much,
what about knight f e5 now? Is it kind of the same,
but
or?
there is no b5. I don't know if I mean, you
Okay.
might have this b5
I'm
threat, right?
threatening already. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's actually winning a piece next move. So
Okay.
here the queen can go to b3, but then bishop d5 I think is winning. So I'm not sure what to do with I mean, from a human perspective, this looks very tricky, actually. Like after dc4, and
What about our queen a4 is never a move to get the a7 pawn after? No, there is a knight hanging. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
knight
no,
hanging. Yeah, so you must move the queen somewhere. But okay, this looks like
so
to me
already
that,
looks fine for black
yeah,
after taking
I
on
think
c4.
black is putting pressure on white. So I
Okay.
think maybe the best move, some kind of rook d1, but I'm not sure, because also many times you might have queen d3 ideas for blacks. Rook d1 and just queen d3, right? And force some trades. So, but it looks to me that black is at least equalizing, because why would be a problem? Materially, it's even. So yeah, that's why I told you this knight a6 is not refuted. This is very strong idea, this knight a6, because it's very straightforward also. Because of a3 looks to be the logical move to avoid knight b4, and then everything is straightforward. Now you put pressure on the e4, and maybe if white would like to still play on, maybe e5, is more complex.
Okay, what we've seen,
Position
like e5 and knight d7 and
nice. And then, but again, then you want to take on now d4, and e5 is hanging, right? So I think it's also for white is not,
and the knight on d2 and the bishop on c1, it's difficult, no, to organize everything.
Yeah, it's a big package now. So the whole idea of this knight bd2 would be to play e4 immediately, and he would like black to take somewhere, right? So the knight can come out with that tempo. So That's why it makes sense not to take on anything, because now actually he's like it's backfiring to this knight bd2, right? So it looks it would look perfect if the bishop was already here, but there is no time for that, right? For
I
white.
see.
So you saw it's like pros and cons in this Catalan, right? So you cannot achieve everything, right?
Okay.
Like
So
if you go
guys,
knight c3, there is
yes,
always
sorry.
c4 hanging, right?
Yes. So
That's
guys,
why.
this was my, excuse me, David, I cut you. So this was my first game that we analyzed. So I should have played this d takes c4, but the opening went perfectly actually until rook c8. Okay, so
Yes, I mean,
it
rook
was the
c8
prep.
looks.
So you
Yes,
proud of
yes,
your
yes.
student, Davido? It's nice, no?
Yes, no, really,
Okay,
like
perfect.
yeah, very good. So that's the point. And the rest, I mean, it was probably rapid or blitz. I don't know, rapid,
Yeah,
right?
it's like 10 minutes games.
Ah, okay, yeah. So it's the opening wise was, I
Okay,
approve. I approve your
perfect. Okay,
progress. There was like two more, and I really like the other games also. Was
okay,
wait one second, which was the next one? Yeah, this was the next one. Okay, so you played
okay.
him again, right?
Yes.
So there he decided to go. Now he took on d5,
So
which
it's the
is.
same. Okay, it's the same, but he didn't play a3. He played ed5. Okay.
Yes, but this allowed you the perfect, the ideal setup, because now you can take back with the c pawn,
Yes.
and actually now this is a d4 pawn, like long term is a target,
Yes.
right?
I remember just I took few seconds to take back on d5, but of course ed5 doesn't make any sense because I'm shutting down my own bishop on b7, right? That's the
Yes,
point.
normally in the Catalan. So when I explained, you remember when I explained this structure here, when you before you don't play b6, let's say he takes, oh well, sorry, he takes, we would like to take back with the e pawn and then play on the e file, right? Because
Sure.
you have a very strong
Yes, this I remember.
right? But once you play d5, sorry, b6, now when he takes, you probably will take back with the c pawn. Otherwise, if you take with the e pawn, you will have a long-term weakness here, right?
I
And this is
remember
just in
now.
general principle. And
Okay.
now you have to be always watch out for your pawn. And now if you push c5, then you have a d5 weakness long-term, right? So now since you already broke the structure, you would like to take back with the c pawn, right?
Okay. Yes.
And I know usually the problem with the c takes d5 is the position becomes really symmetrical, right? A little
Yes.
bit and kind of dry, but I
But
mean
the bishop
still.
g2 is shut down, no?
Yeah. So that's why I mean I prefer black, because bishop b7, knight c6, rook c8. You have
Yes.
this idea like this, rook c8, knight
To attack the
a5,
light
knight
squares
c4.
on the queen side. We have
Yes,
some light square. Yeah.
you can put already big pressure on the b2 pawn, and the knight comes to c4 as the arrows
Okay.
show.
Perfect.
Kind of complicated, but
Okay.
yeah. So but once he goes, so it's very similar like here. Now you, since you have this structure, that's why I explained this. I think it's, if you understand, it's very easy to remember, because when you have this, it makes only sense to take this pawn, because
Sure.
you keep the structure, right? I mean, in the other one, this was a position, right? But now
Yes.
white has already played the e pawn to here, and now the d4 is weakness already, because
Yes.
there is no adjacent pawns anymore, right? And the only way to keep this is to go b3, right? Because then at least he can have a support.
Play hanging
So
pawns. Is
yeah,
that
like
what he played? I can't remember. Did
no,
he
no, he
play
played knight
b3? No.
e5, but I think
Ah, okay.
strategically, I would play b3 just to keep the
Okay.
right? Just
And
because
how
I'm
would I
willing to.
play? Maybe I take, then I play some
No,
rook
I wouldn't
c8.
take. I
Ah,
wouldn't
you
rush the take.
okay,
There
of
is
course.
no. You don't want to rush it, because why is a rush? Like, because if you take, then he gets some release, right? At least,
Yes.
because once you take, let's say you take, you must be careful a little bit, okay, long term, because let's say he get a rook bishop b2, rook d1, and then some d5 pushes. You must be careful, okay?
Okay.
There's a lot of ideas when he takes, and then moves the knight, and then you have this pin.
Okay.
Okay? So this, I mean, you don't play the Queen's Indian, but if I show you really quick, so everyone and
Yes.
you understand, and everyone what I'm talking about, there is the Queen's Indian. Sorry, Queen's Indian, like a regular Queen's Indian. Okay, Bishop b7, Bishop g2. Let's say Bishop e7. I don't know, castles. Maybe Black pushes c5 to break the center.
Yes.
And now this is very typical that white is playing d5. Okay.
I saw some games with ed5, knight h4. I saw some
And
alpha
now knight
zero
h4, and
games.
you see, and this is now very bad for black because now you cannot protect the d5 pawn, and this f5 square got weak. And when he
Wow,
takes, it's gonna become some kind of Benoni, but a bad bishop on b7, right?
I see.
Let's say he takes, and then you get this, I don't know, it's very passive Benoni with the bishop on b7.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very similar idea. This is always, once you have the bishop g2, bishop b7, you must always be alert that this is d5 could be a threat. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's of course it's not a strong version here in this game, but okay, where was I left? Yeah, here. So this is not the same because you already have this c file open, right? But this is always an option to keep in mind long term, right? That you know that as long as the bishop on b7 is unprotected, he
Yes.
can always threaten to push. And then some,
That's
with the bishop on b2, d5, knight h4, knight f5, he can put a lot of pressure on the g7 bishop pawn.
okay.
Even
I
if
see.
even if he's sacrificing the pawn. Okay.
Okay.
Many times this is just sacrifice to gain space on the f5 square and on the diagonal.
Okay. So after
Okay, so
b3, can you let me 30 seconds to try to figure out how I should play? I mean, in terms of a general plan. I mean, of course, I will put my a rook to c8. I'd love to put my f rook on d8 maybe, so I have to find a square for the queen.
what is the most important? I think what I would play here, but let me think what you believe in this position, because
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I don't like. Okay. Maybe you will tell me. Okay. I'm not sure. Wait. So for me, I just want to put my rooks on c and d8, and I have to find a good square for my queen, but it's not easy actually, because on d7 there is knight e5, on c7 there will be some bishop f4. So maybe, okay, let me think 1 second, because also this a6 knight, he cannot stay here forever. I mean, he's doing nothing. So maybe knight b4 attacking the queen, queen move, and maybe a5 to gain some space. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, it's not easy for me here.
yes, my first idea would be like when I first look at the position, as you said, this guy, right? Now it's actually not doing anything, right? So
Yes.
I don't like my knight on a6, right?
Hmm.
So I would probably, without thinking here, I would probably play knight b4, but that's just me, like principle wise,
So
because
interesting. Okay.
it's I must bring the knight to more active square, right? Because now it's lost its purpose, right?
Yes.
The purpose was to force a3. It didn't happen. So and to take back with the knight, but now you cannot go knight c5 anymore. So you must resolve your. It's always like how to relocate the wrong pieces, right? Where it's like your piece that's the worst place, right?
Yes.
And for me, this I think is a knight, because I can wait with developing my rook and the queen. Because for example, if you go rook c8, queen c7, at some point he goes a3, and where is this knight gonna do on a6? It's like
I
all the
see.
squares are taken, right?
Okay. Crystal clear.
So probably my first thought would be to go knight b4, because now also it's challenging the queen. Where are you gonna go? Queen d1, I have knight d3 already, right? So the queen has to decide some awkward
Okay,
square.
so let's play, I don't know, queen b1 maybe. Okay, I know it's
Queen b1,
weird, but
and
and
now
then
I
I'm
don't
so
know.
curious, how would you proceed to continue?
I mean, probably just rook c8. I mean, just
Okay,
bring the
what do you
rook.
think of this? A5 is not a candidate for you. This A5 it's too early.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I would only consider a5. Let's say if you go rook c8, maybe a3, knight c6. This is very typical positional move a5 now, because
I see.
to undermine the structure, right?
Of
Because
course.
if I can force b4 or c takes d5, the d4 pawn is dead, right? So here, in this case, I would definitely consider, because after a4, let's say he goes what, rook d1, and now
Yes.
a4. Actually looks unpleasant for white, because now you finally undermining the structure, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
now it's broken. Now if he pushes b4, you can take a knight d5,
Yeah,
right?
sure. This I understand. So okay, can we come back after queen b1? So queen b1, you play rook c8.
Yeah.
Let's say I go, I don't know, a3. I want to chase this knight.
Yeah, now knight c6. Now
Okay,
the
so it
b4 is
doesn't bother
hanging.
you to come. That's what I was about to ask. Like you are just in front of the bishop, but it's not big deal. You will go knight a5 maybe some soon.
Yeah, it's normal. So again, I'm only liking this because it's if I can show you another opening which is very similar, but I don't know if you're fine with that. But just to understand these like you know tra transpositions, because this is
Yes.
what I'm getting the knowledge from like different openings which I played before or like seen because that's why
So
I'm
this
familiar with
position
it.
for you remind which opening? I'm
So for me,
curious.
it's like a lot of there can be also the Maran, for example. There is this Maran with let's say a3, a6, b3, for example.
Yes.
And then black can play I don't know, bishop d6,
Okay.
bishop d3, castle. At some point maybe c5, bishop b2, something like this, and b6, knight bd2, bishop b7, rook c1, and knight c6, like this. This is a completely normal structure in
I
the
see.
Maran. So you
Okay.
see, again, I have my knight in front of the bishop.
Wow. So it's exactly the same structure
Same, but
and
the bishop is on g2 is actually worse because usually here the problem is that white is going to at some point play knight e5, f4, and try to push
have
against
some
h7,
play.
right?
I see. Okay.
So I
So I
compare.
understand. Yes.
So this is very normal because let's say if you play here, knight bd7. What is the knight doing on
Yes, the
d7?
knight I know is dominated by the d4 pawn. So okay, I
Yes, it's very
understand.
limited. But on c6, it's actually, you have a lot of ideas here. Once you go like even knight a5 long term,
Yeah.
or there is a very nice idea also, rook c7. I don't know if you have seen this before. Rook
I'm
c7.
not sure. Okay, rook
Rook
c7.
moves, and then boom, queen goes to
Ah,
a8. This
yes,
is
yes, I know this stuff.
right. And
Yes.
then you can put pressure on the diagonal, and then knight a5. You take, there is already big pressure.
Okay.
And then rook c8 comes again, and you put pressure on the c file also, right? So
Okay.
this is
And
one way to
yes, and white they cannot take on d5 because of knight takes d5, and they cannot push c5. So it's tough for white to play actually.
yeah. So only thing when he goes, let's say rook c1, now you have to calculate c5.
c5 could be a threat. Yes.
And that's why I actually like a5 because whenever he pushes c5, there is no b4 follow-up, right? So the c5 pawn will be a target because there is no, you are ready to prevent b4. Okay.
Okay.
This is also another in hindsight. So these are the different strategies you have. That's
Okay.
why if you know what the plans are for both sides, you can prepare for that, right?
I see.
In this structure, the only plan for white, what you said, is to push c5 and then b4, somehow lock down this bishop on b7.
Wow. Okay, I see.
So, and for you is to prevent that and maybe play against undermine. But now I think you go rook c1. Now you can, I think you are on time with a4 now to yes, to
Okay.
prepare to prevent
And
everything, maybe.
and for white, knight e5 would scare me. Maybe it's stupid, but instead of rook c1, I don't know if
Yeah,
how
but
to
knight
react
e5?
to those. Okay, can I think just a few seconds to try to guess what you were about to? So, what will you tell me on this? So, actually, there is no threat.
Yeah, I mean, almost
But
everything.
but the knight is nice also on e5, like putting some pressure actually maybe, and maybe the d2 knight now he can come to f3 and try to exchange. I don't know. No, you don't
Yeah,
look.
but if you see, there is no attack. There is no danger against my king. And that's the most
Ah,
important. This is the most important stuff, right? Because when the bishop was on this diagonal, I always worry about take that some pressure on the king. But here, I mean, I don't care. There's pressure here. Like what? Like I
okay,
can even
but
take on.
what can we play here with black? A4 still or okay?
Yeah, but I mean, I would personally,
Okay.
I prefer this rook c7 move because this is already, it's protecting
Ah, okay.
everything.
And okay,
So
and every piece find a good square, like queen a8, the rook on c8, and okay, it's perfect.
yeah, so I mean, it's a complicated, complex position, but I would prefer, like here, I
Okay.
would prefer black because it's easier to play. White has wrong piece, bishop on b2, doing nothing. This bishop doing nothing as well, to be fair.
For me, it's so important because, you know, I couldn't, before our lesson, I'm not able to like evaluate those positions because there are d4 positions. I have no experience and I don't even know, like, you know, if white is better, if black is better. Okay, now I understand a bit better. Okay. So,
Yes, now you know, because what I explained in that closed round, when you get the same structure, but the bishop is usually on this diagonal. Okay.
yes.
And that's also still very
Yes.
very normal for black, but it's complicated because of the king. But now, I mean, there's zero pressure on against the king. So you know, it's
Yes.
psychologically it's nice. So
Yes.
and
Okay.
also, if you play knight e5 ever, white must be careful because you can take on c4, and if you trade off these light square bishops, then the king could become a little bit weak, right?
Okay. Amazing.
Which is not a problem when the bishop is on d3, right?
I see.
So, but
So
I mean,
this was when, oh, sorry.
yeah, so I think that's why when white just voluntarily captures with this pawn, I don't
Yes.
think it's a very good idea, because as long as you can take back with the c pawn without weakening yourself, this is just horrible. I mean,
Okay. So
I
it's
don't
a
want
bad
to sound
structure.
very, yes, because of this. And look at the knight on d2, the bishop. So it's,
Yes. So how did the game proceed? I think this ended very quickly. This game, knight e5. I
you
don't
played
remember.
queen c8, which I kind of like it. It's
Ah,
creative
okay.
because you pin the pawn and you protect your bishop, right?
Yes, I think that was my point to protect this bishop. Maybe threatening to take on c4.
And immediately isolate the pawn on d4,
Yes.
right? So probably maybe white has to play b3 again, right? If he understands the structure, I would go b3 because I know that I must keep the pawns together at
Yeah.
least.
And if we compare to the what we were saying, then my queen on c8 look a bit shaky because it's the
No, but now you can probably take on c4 immediately, right?
because now I can go rook d8 and okay, I can adapt.
You can,
Yes, I
because,
can exchange also. Oh no, it's perfect. Okay, it's fine. Yes. Okay,
yes,
I
now
understand.
it's, look at the king is very bad, right? And you have hanging
Yes.
pawns, knight b4, rook d8. I don't know, it looks
Okay.
just,
So queen c8 was nice. Okay.
was a master move. Yes, kind of like it.
I
So
think he
okay,
played yes.
he went queen a4, but I think I don't know. He went knight b4, but this looks wrong for white. All the pieces are, like, the bishop is
Yes,
not
it's not
developed.
developed. Yes, okay. So
He
this
went
is
wrong somehow. Like knight b4 looks fine, and he played rook d1,
yeah.
and now you took on c4 fine, and yeah, this is the
Yeah,
b5.
and I think yes, at the end I missed some okay, I relaxed myself. I think I missed the good square. Like queen a6 should be winning, or I don't know, something like yeah, maybe queen a6.
Yes, I mean, queen a6 is
I
very
played some
simple
stupid
because
move. I think I forgot queen takes b5. So I played queen c7.
ah
Yeah, I forgot this, but he
yes.
resigned, so I was happy. But okay. In a classical game, I would find like queen a6.
Of course,
So
because now only move queen a3, and then knight goes d5, and
yes,
queen has no square to
yes,
defend the. So yeah, I think it was very instructive game. Like, because after knight b4, you were able to trade off the bishops, and then you
yes,
know it's positionally over, and the d4 pawn has been even if you don't win the piece, the pawn on
yes.
d4 has been isolated. So now you
Okay,
black achieved everything he wants, right?
yes. So David, if we come back, what was the wrong move for white? It was
Taking on
yeah, to
d5.
take on d5. Yes. Okay,
This was
clear.
very premature, very premature.
Yes, a3
But
as the previous game was much better.
yes,
a3
yes, this
c5.
a3 is the best move at c5, and then take on d5. So I guess he tried this e takes d5 in every move order. So,
Yes,
but this
yes.
in this case was just because the position it didn't require to do so. So it wasn't a good decision. So,
Okay.
and there was a third game, right? If I
Yeah, third
remember
game.
quickly, and then yeah, it was
Yes, it's fine. I am learning a lot of stuff.
yeah. So he went b3 now, not a4, not e4, right? And now, but
Okay.
this is okay. This is a different approach. And now,
So
okay,
B3, what I remember what over our class, it's like it's a bit
too slow. Yeah.
slow. So I can just break the center with the C5 and I'm fine
Yeah.
probably.
Now it's it's normal. It's okay. And here, okay, he played rook
But
d1,
yeah,
but this is
you yes.
Yeah, now this is nothing. Now there is no theory anymore because you get this queen c8, queen b8, queen a8,
Yeah, so
move
especially
b8. So
because there is no theory, I'm so curious to like, do you agree with how I played this game? I can't remember much. I was doing useful move, I think, like rook
it was
d8.
very
Is it
good. Yeah.
okay? Maybe h6
Okay.
if I remember. Yes.
I mean, I would run back with the queen immediately, right?
Ah, okay, okay.
Here and then queen a8, right? And then you put this long-term pressure against
Ah, I see.
on this diagonal,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And at some point, but you have to calculate. At some point, you take something here, right? Something
But
is
yes, in a classical game, do I have to calculate? Okay, so can I just think like if, for instance, I'm considering queen b8, if it takes, I don't know, we don't have to move the pieces actually if you want. Okay, if he goes like c takes d5, I will go, maybe I can go knight takes d5 because I have the b4 square, but maybe e d5 is also a move. I don't know. I would consider both. Do you agree?
yes. Even bishop takes d5 looks fine because after e4, you go
Yes.
back with the bishop to b7, and those are hanging pawns again, like weak pawns. Okay.
Ah, okay, I see. Okay, yes.
But okay, first of all, if he takes on d5, he must calculate c takes d4 because the queen is
Also.
hanging, right? That's the first thing.
And
And actually,
yes,
that might be winning because you take on d4, he moves the queen, and then you play e5.
e5, and I have a lot of space. Okay, and
And
the
then you take
d5
back
pawn.
d5.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. And what about, okay, so if he goes d takes c5, I would, okay, let me think. For me, it's not easy at all. Okay, if d takes c5, I think, of course, b takes c5 can be interesting because I'm threatening maybe d4 to take a lot of space. Also, I open the b file for the queen. So d takes c5 to me. And of course, I don't know about bishop. Okay, my favorite move is b takes c5. Maybe bishop c5 also is a move. Maybe also knight c5. I'm not.
Okay, to be honest, in this particular position, it's very easy decision because he played a4,
Wow.
right? It was very useless move, right? He played nothing with
Yes, I
a4.
agree. I
So
saw
we have
that
to
when.
assume that maybe white plays more useful moves because,
Yes.
of course, now the b4 square is bad, right? Very weak, and he doesn't threaten with anything on the a5.
Yes. Oh,
So
yes, I agree.
this should be here definitely, but in general, I mean the position is so complex. You can take with anything. B takes, then E takes. You can also play bishop c5, which is very common because you are eyeballing the f2 weakness, right, with the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of times there is some tactics, especially here because after bishop c5, there is queen g3 as well because he played h3, right?
Okay. So let's
So,
consider instead of a4, there is the pawn on a2 and the king on h2 to try to make some
or like
sense of
something
this.
here, maybe it's more
Yes.
useful if he plays rook c1. You go,
Okay.
I don't know,
Queen
queen
c7.
c7 now. Okay, you
Do
always
you
have to
like queen
be.
c7 or can I play your idea rook c7? Could it be better here?
Yeah, I mean, rook c7 is winning one tempo, right? Because you play queen a8 in two
Yes.
moves, right?
Yes.
But I mean, have to calculate if there is no some tricks, but it doesn't
Mm.
seem so. I think. I mean, queen c7 is always safer to keep the rooks connected, but
Just this
just
time, rook c7, we cannot, against c takes d5, we cannot answer with c takes d4.
yeah, I mean, yeah, even if you go queen c7, he can take on d5, and there is a pin here, so that's. But you can probably take with the knight and
Okay.
then I don't know, something like this. I would imagine maybe knight takes d5. He goes
Yes.
with the queen. You go back with the queen, right?
Yes.
And okay, this looks very healthy position. If he pushes e4,
Yes, I
you
would
can
be
even
scared of
push
this.
back,
Okay.
right? But again, this is counterintuitive. It's contra. I don't know if it's like double-edged move, right? Because now
Yes, and what
you
I
want to take
learned
on
from
d4.
you, like there is no d5,
Yes.
ed5, if knight, yes, ed5, knight d5, knight h4, because the bishop b7 is protected, so there is no those tactics you
Yeah,
showed.
only if d5 was working, I would say it's black. It's not good for
Okay.
black, but now it's actually because once you trade off these guys, the e4 pawn could be target, right? Long
Okay, I
term.
see.
So, and if he pushes e5, then
There is no attacking with this
you
bishop on g2 against the king also.
and the bishop on b2 is also kind of stuck there, right?
Okay.
I mean, you don't get
Okay.
checkmated because knight d4, you always, you can probably just, you know, stop at knight g5.
Yes.
And this looks, you know, like normal, I don't know, normal position, I would say. The d5 knight is a monster,
Okay. I
right? So,
see.
I mean, you don't get checkmated, I would assume here. So,
Okay, yes.
so this is, you know, many ideas here, but of course, this a4 was not, you know, not
Okay.
something that you want to play. But in
So,
general,
yes.
yeah,
Yes,
maybe
here, for
even
instance, how would we take back? Maybe
probably
everything is possible.
yes. I mean, e takes d5. Okay, that's in this case is a bit risky because now he can maybe take on c5, and now you
Yes.
must take back with the pawn to keep the pawns together.
Sure.
And now the big question, if he can push some knight d4, you know, he can play some knight d4 using the
Okay.
queen, right?
Okay,
Or
I see.
b4, maybe even b4.
Yes.
It's looks
So
now
it's
it's a
good
little
for
bit,
white, no?
yeah, like
Yeah.
b4, I don't know, and
Okay.
yeah, so you always have to be you on the watch for this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if the queen was on b8, I would say it's very safe, right?
I see.
So it's always like, you know, you cannot say this is good everywhere because it depends on the position, right?
Okay.
So
So
that's
can
why,
we
yeah.
just try to, okay, for instance, here, so after takes on d5, so I understand ed5 is not probably the most precise. So, okay, maybe knight, maybe bishop. Okay.
But you know, you can also consider now take on d4 because you are pinning the pawn, right? First of all.
I can,
So
okay, I can do that
that's
also.
the first question, right? What happens if you do that?
I
Maybe
see.
that's the cleanest, right?
Okay.
Possible. And
And after
then
knight d4, what
knight d4, maybe okay, now there is the pin.
no, queen c7. Yes, queen c7 maybe, no?
No, he can take on a maybe
Yes,
d5,
yes, the queen is protected. Okay,
but that
sorry.
looks very equal, right? Because you take on c2, you take back, and everything is trading off.
Okay.
So this looks very dry position. So
Okay.
very equal, right? But um yeah, okay, now
Okay.
you must resolve this, but maybe queen c7 is safer. But again, in general, this when you reach this, and white doesn't have advantage, right? So this b3 setup with the knight on b2, it doesn't
Yes.
do much because if you are able to play c5 before e4,
Yes.
you know, it's very symmetrical again,
Okay.
right? So you don't have to worry, you don't get disadvantage out of
Yes.
opening. It's always good, right? You get what you
Maybe
want.
maybe that will be a problem in the future if I'm playing some um, like less rated opponent. Like maybe this closed Catalan, I cannot really um, like fight in this position with black if white decide not to have a game.
No, but I mean, you can always take back with the pawns, right? And take on the hanging pawns. That's
So
always,
okay, it's still
this is what I usually did, right? So let me show you an example. So I used to play them around the Slav, right?
okay.
All the time, even against 2200, 2300, something like this, right? This is the Meran with black,
Yes.
okay? So there is the move queen c2, bishop d6. This is one of the main moves with b3,
Yes.
castle, and then bishop e2. Okay, white is maintaining the center.
Yes.
I go, sorry, b6. I go b6 to
Mm-hmm.
develop my bishop. Castle, bishop b7, bishop b2. And now let's say rook c8. I'm waiting to push c5. So he goes with the rook to d1 to put pressure here. And a lot of times, what I did was just playing c5 at some point, you know, c5, right? Takes and then pawn takes. Takes and takes. And just play this kind of structure because, you know, computer shows 0.23 for white, but, you know, it's a game, right?
Okay, I see.
And then I'm slowly playing, moving my queen and out queen e6 and slowly, you know, playing for d4 somehow. But it's if I play against strong players, I take with the knight usually.
Okay, so
So
it's not a draw disposition. I can try to play like with this structure. Okay, I understand.
yeah, but also I mean, with black, when you play a close tournament, which you usually play,
Yeah.
with black, it's always to play safe is always a good idea, right? So again, it depends. If you play an open tournament, you take on more risk, of
Yes.
course. But here you don't play against very low. I mean, maybe in the future, you know,
Okay.
once you get enough practice, you can deviate somehow. But once you understand what's up, right?
Yes, yes.
Then you can learn
Okay.
bishop b4 check, right? That's the next level. Once
Yeah.
you become I will show you the other line.
Okay.
With a different, which I usually like. I always mix them up, right? Because I
Yes.
play all, because we agreed to play this because if they choose the
To
reti,
avoid any move orders tricks.
yes, if
That
they
was the
choose the
main point.
reti move order, then you are not screwed, right?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
then there is no bishop b4, but you will see in the reti it's also not dangerous, but that's a difference. So I wanted to, you know, so these 3 games, I'm actually, you know, satisfied because, you know, your middle game was good, opening was good, and
Okay. So I
okay,
will try to play some more games in the future, and maybe we analyze again because it's a good exercise. Yes.
yeah, I think the best practice is to play online. That's really the best idea you can do,
Okay.
because I mean it's like it's a free practice basically, right? And good ways to avoid mistakes in the actual game, right? Really that's the best. This is what I used to do when I was professional. We were training together openings with some fellow IMs GMs in Hungary, and then
Yes.
we played practice games against each other, unrated, of course, right?
Yes.
And then because during the game, when you have time, you are coming up with different ideas because you are in the process, right? Okay, so that's why. But when we are looking now, you only have a few seconds to think about this, right? I mean, I cannot say, okay, take 5 minutes and find a move, right? Because that doesn't
No,
make sense.
you could, but okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that type of guy.
Yeah.
Maybe some coaches do that who want
No,
easy,
but yes,
but
yes.
I'm more like, you know, okay, take 1 minute, maximum two, just
Yes,
with
I see.
first intention, but you can do on your own. You have a lot of you can do those type of exercise on your own, right? I
Okay.
mean, so
Okay,
that's my
so
mantra.
let me
Yeah,
just
so
say one or two words in French for our guy following. Ok, donc
sure.
les amis, là sur la Catalane, on a analysé les 3 parties que j'avais envoyées à coach Davido hier, que j'avais joué suite à la prépa qu'il nous a fait. Et là, du coup, deuxième partie du cours jusqu'à 13h30. Là, on va essayer de comprendre comment jouer contre les lignes secondaires. Ok. So now, Davido, sidelines of Catalan.
Yes, I wanted to complete basically
Mhm.
the Catalan a little bit, and yes, here was the notes. And yes, I mean, I will start with this, you know, when there is d4, okay, already played, because
Okay.
I mean that's the Catalan basic, and then next is the reti move orders, okay. So castle, castle. So yes, there is also, you know, queen c2. You said, right? Queen c2. If they start queen
So
c2,
yes, for instance,
this
instead
is
of castle, yeah, there is like maybe queen c2, b3, knight c3, knight d2, bishop f4, some random moves. Okay, yeah, okay. So
yeah. So queen c2, I used to play as white, but the queen c2 is,
okay,
you
can
know,
you?
that's
Sorry,
why
can
sorry.
you each time like ask me how I would react and then you explain? Is it okay?
Yeah, but in order to understand what's the point of queen c2, you
Yes.
must understand the heart of Catalan. And I'm not sure if you know the open Catalan.
Open Catalan is with d takes c4. Yes,
Yes.
I know. I know a bit. Yes.
Okay, so then if you know, what do you think? Why does white play queen
Okay,
c2 before castle?
they avoid maybe d takes because if castle d takes c4 against queen c2 there is a6, then queen takes c4, b5, and I can maybe develop the bishop. So queen c2, they
What if I
will.
take?
If you take maybe a4 would make sense. If you play a6, a5, no.
So if I take on c4 now, what does white want to play after d takes c4?
Ah, okay, sorry. So queen takes back.
And a6,
And a6, a4.
b5.
Ah, there is this trick. Yes, there is this trick. Okay, sorry.
That's
Okay,
always there.
okay. So I'm listening.
Okay, thanks. Yes. No, yes, the point is that white would like to avoid the open Catalan because this kind of drawish. It's like, okay, not draw. But there's a lot of games and people are bored, right? So take the point is that now white doesn't have to castle. If you castle, it's the same is transposition, right? To the main line.
Okay.
But here, actually, white can decide to win a tempo with, for example, bishop f4 to attack the pawn immediately, or move the queen back right away.
I see.
What's the point? If you push the pawn, now I can move my knight, right? But let's say knight e5. And you don't have time for bishop b7.
Wow, I see. Okay, I see the point.
This is one idea. And the second idea is to immediately attack the c7 pawn, because now after b5, I take the pawn, right?
I see. Okay.
And it's not as easy now for black because he has to make some weird moves to avoid that, okay? So this is one. Other idea is that the queen voluntarily goes back to c2 to be waiting for b5. But then I'm the first to strike on this diagonal.
Okay. I
Okay,
see.
so that's the main idea. Okay. So, and then, you know, it's playable for white. So at the queen c2, if definitely taking on c4 may not be the best idea now.
Okay.
There are two ways to use, right? Because now you see what's the drawback? What do you think? What's the downside of this queen c2?
So you didn't cast. Oh, you lost maybe some flexibility, but okay, we saw like the c2 square. I think it's the good square for the queen usually. But for instance, you cannot play this queen d3 as you showed in your game. The guy you played queen d3 against this strong GM. Okay, so what else? Queen c2.
But you know, I
Yes.
give you a hint.
Yes.
Queen c2 cannot trick you. But why?
What did you say? Cannot trick me?
Cannot trick you.
Yeah, to me, I think I could transpose like in what we saw, but maybe I can be more greedy, but I don't think so. I think I could just transpose like with c6.
Yeah, c6, right? And then what? c6?
Yes.
There's nothing better than castle, right?
Yes.
So that's why I said this is the same thing for you, right? Why do you want to learn extra line for nothing, right?
I know, okay. Of course, I don't want. Yes, okay, perfect.
So just because other move I just show you is a c5 immediately, right? So this is what I meant. White take,
okay.
and now there is a check here. So that was the difference, the downside.
Okay.
Okay, and then now if he goes bishop d2, he can take on something like c5.
Okay, but are we taking advantage, or is just another line like playable for both? I mean,
no, and d takes c5 is pretty equal because queen a5 check. The main line is knight c3.
Okay.
And then black takes on c4, something like this, castle. And queen takes c5. And now white has sacrificed the pawn, but there is a lot of activity with bishop g5 and then knight e4. And I don't like this for black because this is very passive. And, you know, at some point, white plays knight e4, rook c1, and you are still undeveloped, right? So it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit unpleasant to play.
So I prefer to play. Also, I don't have such a good memory, so it's fine if I can play c6 and transpose. It's perfect.
It's simple because I mean there is no better way for white to. So he must go castle, and it's the same thing. So we done with queen c2 very easy. And other move like knight c3. Again, if you play just c6, what do you think? It looks very similar, right? Yeah, because knight c3 is the main move as well, right?
Can they try to like avoid castle to push e4 quicker? For instance, okay, knight c3, c6, knight e5, let's say.
So again, I tell you what's the point of knight c3. The point of knight c3 is again if black takes on c4 to get an open Catalane. Now white doesn't castle but goes knight e5, immediately taking by the pawn. Okay, and open up the diagonal. And the knight on c3 is better squared. Is better than on so the castle, the king on e1 is still safe, right?
Okay.
And now white gets the pawn back, and you know he has open the diagonal. So that's the point of knight c3. So c6 makes a lot of sense because now let's say if what would you do if white doesn't if you castle we again transpose, right?
Yes, knight e5. Is it an interesting move? Knight e5 to push e4 like very quickly, or it's just knight d7 and nothing?
I think just knight b7. The king is in the middle, right? So white has to be careful because even if you go e4, then you can always take and give the check on b4.
Sure.
And then the king is in trouble, right? And the pawn on d4 is in trouble.
Okay.
Right? So the only trick, maybe if white, what would you do if white plays b3? maybe because b3 makes sense to protect the pawn, right?
Okay. So, okay, maybe I would check first, like some queen a5. Is it something or not? Okay, wait. I'm just okay. Maybe queen a5 is something. I like queen a5. It cannot be bad.
But bishop d2.
Okay. Yes, I see. Can be bad. Okay. So, what else?
But you are on the right track, right? It's b3 has weakened some.
Yes. Okay. Don't know, but maybe I don't know. Not bishop. Okay, let me think. I'm not thinking. B5 maybe can be a move in this position. Makes sense. B5 to.
But then c5 usually.
Yes, that's true. Okay. Yes, of course.
How can you immediately punish black dynamically? It's
I
very,
mean,
it's very.
bishop b4. There is bishop d2. Knight e4 is interesting, but doesn't. No, knight e4, knight takes, pawn takes. Maybe it's something. Knight e5. Okay, maybe bishop b4. You go bishop d2, and then what?
So knight e4, bishop b2.
Why b2?
You
Yes,
said
knight
what?
e4. No, knight e4, knight takes.
Pawn takes.
Knight e5.
f6. I don't know.
Are you trapping my knight? But knight
And
g4.
then I can play. Yeah, but f6. Then maybe f5, and e4 is not hanging anymore. And also some bishop b4 checks are tricky, right?
Okay, so maybe knight e4. That's the move.
Yes, knight e4 I think is very strong now because you are using this pin here. So if he wants to defend the knight, then bishop b4, because bishop d2 you take, right? You get the knight,
Yes,
bishop pair.
of course.
That's the point of knight e4. You take away the d4 pair from the bishop. Because bishop
Okay.
b2 I think is losing. Bishop b4, queen a5. Now you start throwing everything, right?
Okay. And can
Against the
we have a look at knight e4, d4, so knight e5, and f6? That's what
e5.
you. Yes.
I mean, for me, this looks very logical.
We have to calculate this in a classical game, no? Because it's critical, no? This line.
Yes,
Okay.
but for me, this f6 looks the most logical at first because knight g4 is only move.
But
and then,
bishop b4 is winning material, no? Bishop b4 and
no, bishop d2.
I see.
And he gets the pawn back. But for me, this f6 looks nice because knight g4 and maybe knight g4 I can play a e5, right?
E5?
f6, knight g4, e5.
Wow. Yes, of course, you're attacking the knight. Okay, it's nice. Okay, yes.
And then it's game over, right?
Okay, nice.
So yeah, just to show you, here e5, and now double attack, right? Oops, sorry, that was a big.
Okay.
Now it's double attack, and this should be winning.
So knight c3, b3 is not a good idea. Yes, to weakening, and the king is in the center. We pay for it.
Yeah. So now the best way I think is to transpose again, right, to the main line. But the castle c6 here again. I think we more or less covered, all those lines. Some things I added here to our analysis here is that after this, queen b3. That was one idea that we didn't cover. Queen goes to b3, not to d3.
Wow. Okay. But here, yes.
Queen b3, and now you have to be a little bit careful because it's a tricky move. Queen goes to b3. The idea is that
I'm trying to understand the idea. Yes, defend the c4 pawn and do knight c3. No, that's the only point.
Yes, he would like to play on the queen side very fast, right? So queen b3, it's it's giving up on the e4 threat, right? No more e4.
Yes.
But he would like to play knight c3, bishop f4, rook c1, and maybe take on d5 and knight b5 fast, right? That might be one idea. So here you have to be, if you want to keep the position complex, I found a nice move order. I think it's really nice. So you don't play b6 yet.
Yes, okay.
Because after b6, you're offering the cd5 move, and you must take with the c pawn.
Yes.
For example, b6, maybe knight c3, and if you go bishop or knight bd7, bishop f4, if you play bishop b7 or bishop even bishop, I don't know, a6, right? He can
Yes.
take, and we agree that if you take, there is a weakness on c6, right?
Yes. So we go
If you
C.
take, you must be careful with knight b5
Hmm.
ideas.
Ah, okay.
And now this is the point of king b3, right?
Ah, and we are a bit stuck in the queen side. Okay. Yes.
And now there is knight c7 and rook c1. This looks, maybe white is better a little bit, right? Because he was very fast on the queen side, and your knight on d7 is now, you know, everything is stuck. Okay? So this is the threat of queen b3. So what I usually do against queen b3 is to keep the position, you know, flexible. I play the knight to d7 first, because if he takes, we can decide, right?
Yes. Okay. And
How would you
also,
take back?
we don't mind to not have the knight a6 idea because the queen is on b3, so we will not need to play knight a6 at any point, right?
Okay, yes, this is different because
Okay.
knight a6 was only working because the knight was on d2 and it was blocking the bishop. So it was a
Yes.
good compensation, you know, in
Okay.
exchange for that.
So
But
sorry, what was your question?
yes, at knight b7,
Yes.
if he takes on d5, how would you take?
Oh, now I take, of course, with the e pawn. It's a good Carlsbad for me. With the bishop on g2, the
Yes,
pawn on
because
e2, as you explained.
and you are maintaining
I didn't play
this
b6, so
structure.
yes, it's perfect. Yes.
Very good, right? So that's why we like this flexibility, knight d7. And now it depends what he does, but what I like here is that, say he goes knight c3.
Yes.
I don't play b6 again because I know that he takes a knight b5, bishop f4 is
I
going to
see.
get
Okay.
home. So here comes this move a5.
Wow.
The idea that I shared with you before a little bit, just in very briefly.
Yes.
But it is a different way because the queen on b3 is actually, you know, it's in some tricks, right? For example, if he goes rook d1 here,
Yes.
what is the move that you might consider? What do you think? It's a very, again, a very typical Catalan trick.
Maybe I will say something stupid, but first thing I'm considering is some kind of forced move a4. If knight a4, I take c4, queen c4, b5, but it's not working. So, okay, I think it's a stupid idea. So, okay, rook d1. What would I play?
Why
Okay,
is
wait.
not working? I'm just curious. I'm not sure.
Maybe queen c6 at the end, and the rook on a8 is hanging. And even without this, I'm not sure.
Rook takes a4.
Oh, maybe I missed that. Okay, so a4, knight a4. Takes on c4, queen c4, b5. Yeah, so maybe it's working. Okay. Yes.
It's a fork.
Yes, I was thinking queen c6, but yes, rook a4 and not ba4. Okay.
Yes,
It's
a
nice.
piece. Yeah.
But I was even not sure a4 is useful, but yes, it's useful, a4. Yes, because the c4 pawn is hanging then. Okay.
Exactly, right? So this is the hidden idea of that, right? Now a4.
Sure. Wow.
And
Yes,
now
nice.
if he goes back, if he takes, you take, and now he must go with the queen, but then you go b5. And this was a very good trade, right? This is what we like. Then bishop b7, and this pawn structure is monster, right?
Yes.
This is very typical trick with a4.
Wow,
So
nice. Okay.
it only works when the queen on b3, right? And if he retreats, you can again take, and now it's pawn, right? He's not on time. You can even play knight b6 next to defend the pawn. So it's a healthy. He must take on a4 is the same thing, and b5. Okay.
Wow. Yes, nice.
That's the trick. So the knight c3, a5. Actually, a4 is coming anyways because he cannot defend the pawn with queen c2. So he's blocking the c file. So that's the trick. So
yes,
after queen b3, knight b d7. If he goes rook d1, this is probably better to be flexible.
yes.
But again, a5, right? We keep you want to keep this structure.
I see.
Why?
Okay.
Because again, you have to understand that after queen b3, you don't have to worry about e4.
Wow, I see. Yes.
After queen c2, you play b6, bishop b7 fast to prepare for e4.
Okay.
So this is a switch of mentality, right here.
I understand perfectly. Yes. Okay.
because you know after queen b3 he wants to take on d5, but he
Yes,
wants
and
to
play
take back
knight
with the
b5.
e-pawn.
Yeah, okay, yes, yes.
And in order to take back with the e-pawn, you must not touch this pawn, right? Because that's weak on the c6.
Crystal
So
clear.
so you are just waiting. You're just playing waiting moves. You're waiting for white. Please, bro, take it. But what
Yes.
else do you do? Because you cannot play for e4. You cannot take. So let's say he goes bishop f4. These are
Yes,
all very
I was about to
typical
say.
moves.
Okay, I go
Now,
a4.
h6.
I don't go a4. Okay.
No. I mean, why rush? You go a4 after knight c3,
Okay.
right? Because if you go a4, you're helping white to play queen c2, and now we didn't reach anything, right?
Okay, I see.
So I like this waiting move. Actually, it's engine's first move, but I like this. This is very typical h6.
Wow.
We're
Okay.
waiting. We are waiting. What is white doing, right? Tell me. It's not very easy actually to find the move. Okay,
Yes.
because he goes knight c3 again a4.
Yes, if he goes knight d2, there is no point with queen b3 then, no? Because
What would you do now? What would you do here?
Okay, let me think.
Because as a close Catalan player, you must know this idea as well. But I didn't really explain this to you, so.
Okay, so yes, I know. Knight h5. No?
And bishop e3.
Knight f6 back.
Okay.
Okay.
Or
f5. Yes, you told me this f5 move.
briefly, yes, probably, yes. But
okay, yes.
That's one hidden idea that it always exists, right? This is what, if you would like to keep the position complex, you can start playing. And now the knight is misplaced on d2, right?
Wow, yes.
And then maybe bishop d6 and g5. You start attacking, and there is no pressure. There is really no play for white, right?
Yes.
Looks very easy for.
Can I ask, what about instead of knight d2, knight e5? I don't know why I'm always scared of those knight e5 moves, but I'm scared. Okay, let's say knight e5 here.
Knight e5. Okay, good question. I didn't think about this, but at first I would probably consider, okay, the first thing you always want to do, look at this what if take, right? But then pawn takes, knight b7, right? That's always the first thing you look at, right? So let's say you take,
and actually,
knight b7.
Yes, the queen on b3 makes no sense. Now there is knight c5, yes.
Exactly, right? So, for example, if he takes, again, big decision time, right? You can probably take with the pawn now because
we have
this looks very nice. Knight c5. And actually the a5 pawn is very healthy because once you go knight c5, there is no b4, right? So you are consolidating your knight on c5. So this looks to me very healthy. Like e4, I think white is not on time because you could play knight c5 even, right? Maybe queen c2, even d4, right?
Yes, exact.
And now there is no b4. So this looks, again, knight d2 is g5 losing, right? So bishop e3, maybe knight e6.
And I'm happy.
Yes, or if you are very adventurous, you can.
Yes, of course we are. Of course we are.
You can sacrifice the queen, right? Takes, rook takes, and then knight d3, bishop c5, right? Look at rook, bishop. I think this is good compensation also, right?
Yes,
like look at the structure.
Yes.
I also prefer black here. Okay.
So okay. Sorry. So yes, queen c2 was not making us differences. Knight c3, I understand. So it's to play some kind of different version of open Catalan, and this queen b3 can be tricky because the idea is to, like, if b6, play on the queen side very fast with knight c3, takes d5, knight b5, and some problems.
Yeah,
very
some
clear
position, because in those type of positions, I think white is always it's for black. There is no plan, like, right? Like in a position like which I showed you with the knight on b5, I think it's very unpleasant for black, right? Because it's too is a very closed, and white is only taking on the c5, right? So when you see queen b3, you must be like, okay, now let's wait a moment. There is no e4, so he doesn't play for. So these are the two ideas for white, to go queen c2, knight d2, e4, or queen b3 and then play on the c5, right? So if he goes queen c2, of course you go b6, bishop b7 to face e4 very fast with c5, right?
Yes.
But if he goes queen b3, you know that he doesn't play for he doesn't want to play for e4, so you are playing a different approach. You are waiting, right? So you just play this, throw in these waiting moves. So these are typical waiting moves for black. This a5, a6, like this h6. Okay,
Amazing.
very
This
typical.
H6. Okay.
If there is a game in that a5 line, you should check out Max Shadlu play this with black. It's very similar idea. Okay, I don't want to search for now because it takes some time,
No,
but
it's fine. I think I have it because I made some database with our basic position, and I saw Max Sudlu, he was playing a lot this line, so I think I have it. I will find it later.
yes, I will like show you, but this was very similar idea where he played h6 and he beat some strong GM with black, some 27 with a similar idea. With it's not in the same position, but in this line which I play as black, you know, this bishop b4 check, bishop d2, a5 like this, right? Which I like to play, and the bishop back to e7 here.
Okay.
Here c6, and in these kind of positions like rook d1, knight b7, and at some point he played some h6, very similar idea with h6, just waiting, right? But in this line the queen is on b3, but even with the queen on c2, he played h6, and white played knight e5 at some point. So it was very, I think, very instructive game for you to understand, to get some different ideas. Like
I will check it.
h6
Okay.
just waiting, right? Crazy.
Wow.
But it works because if you go knight c3, I take on c4 finally, right? If you go knight d2, I go knight h5 and f5, and the bishop cannot go back to d2,
Yeah.
right? So it's all about waiting, and a lot of times white, I think in the game white plays some h4 to also wait or something, but it's very similar to here in this queen b3. Okay, so finally I introduced you this a5 idea, but through this queen b3. But I think if you understand in general what is the point, you understand. So h6, but I think with the queen on b3, it makes even more sense, right? Because the queen on b3, it only makes sense if you can play knight c3, knight b5 fast. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything on b3, right? So that's why we are making it look like full.
Yes.
I mean, this will be a bit exaggerating, but also let's say he goes if he goes h4 here, I think you can also play, yeah, I put it, if he goes h4, now you can actually start playing knight h5.
And f5, f4.
Bishop
Then?
boom, f5,
Okay.
yes. Knight c3 and now f4. Why? Because he weakened the
Yes, this I
g3.
know. This, yes, okay. Wow.
And now you are breaking his king, right? And this is, I think, something that you would love here, right?
Yes, of course.
So g4, okay, is knight h6, but okay, this is complications. But I mean,
Yes,
black.
this is perfect position.
Yeah, so this h6, I think this a5, a6 is a very nice waiting move. But even if the queen is on c2, even then. But yeah, just check out that Max Shadlu part, the Max Shadlu game. That was really nice.
Okay.
So this is queen b3, some new idea. I think the other moves, you know, we kind of covered this queen b3, and if he
I
goes
think
knight
b3
c3,
on the file, the b3 move instead of queen b3, just b3.
Here?
Yes, I think we said some.
I mean, you can just go b6 the same you did against your
okay. So
game, bishop b7 and knight bd7,
okay.
and
Okay.
I mean, and then push c5, right? So this looks also very also if it goes something like this, you can play c5. I mean, just one idea like c5, and then
okay, it looks very similar to what we
or
done.
even maybe, where did I analyze this? I put it somewhere, but maybe it was knight c3, knight d7, and maybe b3 here, bishop b2 and bishop, yeah, bishop b7, then probably c5 or wait for e4. But this is not really dangerous.
Okay.
I hear
yes.
queen d3. Yeah, queen d3. I put it here, but it's same move order. If he plays e4, for example, if you reach this position, it's the same, right? If the queen comes from c2, right? You also can allow sometimes, you can allow e4.
Okay.
Okay, and take, so I think it's the move order if he goes b3, b6, and doesn't play bishop b2, but queen d3 now. And not before queen d3. If he plays queen d3 before, you play this bishop a6.
Okay.
And after, right? So again, it's a different move order. He doesn't play e4, but I showed you my game where I played knight b7, queen d3, b6, and not b3, but e4 first.
Mm-hmm.
But this weakened this diagonal, and there bishop a6, right?
Yes, I remember.
And remember this, what I played? How did I
Yes,
break?
of course, like those knight c5 ideas. So takes on e4. Ah, c4. Sorry. Yes, I
Before
takes c4,
takes.
and I don't know if it was e5 maybe, or yes, I think it was e5.
Yes, e5 now, right? Because if he takes with the pawn, you have knight g4.
Yes, I
And
remember this.
bishop f4 g5. There is a lot of some analysis here, but I will send you that. It's like it's a four. I forced analyze this with the engine because it's a forced line.
Uh-huh.
But this is the thing here, okay?
Okay.
You must. So, but here white pushes e4 before b3. But if he
Uh-huh.
doesn't push e4,
Yes.
but he
So
starts with, so there's a lot of move orders. If he plays first b3,
mm-hmm.
b6, and queen d3 now, and not e4, right? So it's the same thing. Here you don't have to play bishop a6 because there was no e4.
Okay. Yes.
Then you can just go bishop b7.
Yes.
And if he goes e4, which is the point, now you can even just take
Yes.
and push c5. And
Okay.
you know, the b3 is not a useful move to have in this
Yes. He's not fully developed yet, and we are opening the position.
take, and now bishop f6.
Okay.
And this is equal. I mean, he has some tricks with knight g5. You should be aware, but this is a good trade for you, right? Because you take, and then you get this endgame.
Okay.
Where this is, I think, is a good endgame for black with the knight, right?
Yes.
Equal, like knight c5, and okay, it's equal, right? So yeah, this is one trick white has up his sleeves. But so this is if he goes b3, then you
Yes.
go bishop b7, but he goes e4 fast, then you go bishop a6 and take on c4.
Okay.
So
I
that's the
see.
only trick he has.
Okay, so can we come back to the... Okay, so yes, this position. So, okay, for instance, just quickly, like bishop f4 it's just kind of the same. It's linked with the plan of queen c2, rook d1, knight e5. So it's not like a different line.
I mean,
okay.
there is only one line with this bishop f4, knight c3, like this. Knight c3, knight b7, and bishop f4.
Yes. Okay.
And then you have to take on c4. Yeah, I actually wanted to show you this. Now you
Yes.
take on c4. This
This
is
I
line
don't remember.
e4.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a pawn sacrifice. The point is this, that white is sacrificing the pawn. Again,
Why
if you go
why do I
b6,
take on... Yeah, okay.
then he wants to take on d5 and the same knight b5.
Ah, okay.
Very tricky. But here you have to take the pawn on c4 because he cannot defend it, right?
Okay.
So he usually plays e4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a compensation for the center,
Okay, so
right?
this one I have to remember because it's a one-off where we take on c4 because usually we do not take.
Yes, and now there is this interesting move which I like, rook e8.
Okay.
Very deep, right? Very deep move.
You want
But the
knight.
main move is b5. But the problem with this, you have to analyze, you have to memorize d5, and it's like a lot of crazy stuff. Like everything is hanging. So I don't like this. So I like this rook e8. It's again, we're just waiting. It's like, okay, what is he gonna do? e5, d5, but d5 doesn't make sense now because you don't weaken your b5 square, right? So normally what white does here is to play a4.
Yes.
To stop b5, okay?
Yes, and they
Now
want
we go
maybe
b6.
okay to play bishop a6 kind.
Yes. So if he goes queen e2, now we go a5
Of
first.
course. Yes.
Okay, to prepare bishop a6. Now rook d1, bishop a6. So this is very standard position. Okay, rook d1, bishop a6, knight d2, and now rook c8 to prepare. And now, do you see the idea of rook e8 long term, right?
Yes, it's nice. I was saying this to myself, like the rook is very nicely placed.
Because whenever he pushes d5, you get into this e5, right? So it was thinking ahead. Because you know that queen e2 is the only way to attack the c4 pawn.
Amazing.
And now, if he takes on c4,
yes. If he takes here, wait.
What is a common idea?
If he takes here, wait. Yes. This I don't know if it's working. Okay, of course, first move I'm checking is b5, but it doesn't look working here. So what else? Let me think. Okay, because if I calculate like b5, a b5, c b5,
Knight
or
a5.
yes, knight a5, and it's over. Okay. So here there is something typical.
Yes, because you see he pinned himself, right?
Yes, so how can I... Okay, let me think a little bit more. Ah, no, I don't want to play neither e5 or c5 because my queen is... so knight h5 doesn't look a move. Ah, now I have it. Okay, it's knight d5.
Yes, that's very typical. Very typical
Okay,
move
okay,
to activate the knight, right?
okay, I
Exactly.
see.
Knight a5 very strong, right? Because if he takes, you take maybe the c pawn, and then you're using this. You're using this
Nice.
pin, so it's very constructive for everyone
Uh-huh.
who wants to know this. That's how you can use the pin indirectly, right? Because now the bishop has to go away because I mean you want to take and destroy the pawn structure, right? And then he goes back. Now you can just bring the knight to b4 finally, more active square, right? And then maybe push c5 next, right? At some point.
Yes.
And yeah, because let's say he goes rook c1, maybe c5, and then you see the point because if he goes d5, you can take and this rook on e8 can be very dangerous with the bishop, right?
Yes.
For example, and so now this looks, normal, very good position for black. So,
Yes.
but yeah, this is it's not easy, right? But so this bishop f4
with the Catalan move order, we checked maybe every possible move, no? I mean,
yeah. So here, if he starts with bishop f4,
yes.
what would you do?
If he starts with this move, okay, so if he starts with this move, I mean, this move bishop f4 is connected to either takes on d5, knight c3, and knight b5 sometimes, or maybe knight e5, rook queen c2, rook d1. I think it's in both plan, it's useful. So what would I do? Okay, let me think, please.
First.
So, okay, if I play my basic b6 move, can he goes knight c3, and if I go now knight d7 to avoid knight e5, he takes on d5 and knight b5 then. So maybe b6 is not ideal for this.
Maybe.
Okay.
Now I showed you the different ideas. There is queen b3, queen c2, queen c2, knight bd2, queen c2, rook d1, bishop f4, and there is bishop f4, knight c3, right? These are the 4 or 5 different types of ideas for white.
So here you started with the bishop. So okay, maybe you know what? Maybe I'll wait.
And what is the most flexible developing move?
Not b6, not knight d7, because maybe I want knight a6 sometimes.
What is the only position? What is the only position where you play knight a6? Which is the only
with queen c2, knight d2 to go for a quick e4. Okay, so knight d7 then.
Yes, if you remember that, this already answers your question.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because we don't play knight a6 in any lines for sure, right? That's the worst place for the knight, but it only works there because the bishop is stuck on c1.
I see. Okay.
But once you see bishop f4, you know that e4 is not very dangerous anymore, and he would like to be tricky, right? Because he doesn't reveal the plan. Maybe he goes queen b3 next, and knight c3, or queen c2.
Exactly. Yes.
So you must be flexible too, because knight bd7. And now if he goes knight c3, it's the same. You can take and then this rook e8, right?
Okay.
You're maintaining the structure.
I
If you
wait
go
for the
queen,
knight to come to c3 to take on c4.
and it's the same thing, right? This was this line.
Is there a rule for like taking on c4? How can I know if I should take or not?
I mean, once the knight is on c3, you know he cannot attack on from the c file, right? So
Okay.
it's more logical. But it's also if there is no knight e5, right? So you prevent it with knight bd7. Because if there was knight e5, he could easily take the pawn back, because after b5, the c6 pawn would be hanging.
What
right?
about knight d2? It's not working, knight d2 here?
Yeah, but you have also knight b6
Okay. And
attacking the pawn at the same time, right? So,
okay.
so now it's very nice. So this is
see.
one hidden way to defend the pawn. Okay.
Mm.
So now you flex it, because if you go queen c2, you know what he does. If you go queen b3, it's the same position. Now you push a5 and you remain flexible.
Okay, I see. Oh,
Makes
bishop
sense?
f4 is tricky. There is a lot of tricky move orders.
Yeah, exactly. So if you know all these ideas, so you play knight a6 only when he goes queen c. So that's why we play queen c2, b6 fast, right?
Yes.
Because we must be ready with knight bd2, bishop b7, e4, knight a6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if he goes bishop f4, it's still, you know, if he goes knight bd2 now, also you can probably just go b6, right, to prepare for queen c2.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also a very tricky move, because if you go knight bd7, he can go queen c2 and he trick you.
Yes. This one I remember. Okay.
So you go b6, because if he goes b3,
yes.
it's nothing special, right? Bishop b7 and c5 quickly. So yeah, so
I think so after bishop f4, we checked everything, no? Or you see some other try for white in this move order to try to mess it up?
No, I think the most common is probably queen c2 but queen c2, knight b2, knight bd2. I think that's what they mostly play. Or knight c3, bishop f4. That's also very, very popular.
Okay, I
this
see.
Knight c3 move order. So it's in knight c3 move order, you go knight bd7 always, right? So you only play b6 after queen c2. That's also easy to remember. Okay, so
I only play
I think the only line that could be tricky is to go this b6, and if he doesn't play knight bd2, right? But this bishop f4 ideas, right? So I would consider this a completely different approach, right? This rook d1, if he doesn't play knight bd2, and then this kind of knight e5, right?
Okay.
So this is this is very long. Maybe I can, or you have a look, but this is transposition from like many lines, right? If he goes like this, but it's unlikely they will do it when the bishop is on c1, right? Because this is not the most, because when the bishop is on c1, white usually likes to make use of the d2 square, that the bishop is not on d2, right?
I see.
But this is also transposing to a main line, right? When you do this, and he just go this knight e5 here.
Okay.
And right, this is what I think I showed you before. This like knight d7, and they take and play e4.
Yes,
here.
this I remember. Okay.
This is some main lines, but there are some tricks also here. But I don't. It's like something like knight g4. But again, you might want to have a look at this move, and then they somehow sacrifice some crazy stuff here with the take. Like I remember there is a move like this, and then check, and then f6, king here, some f6, some crazy lines.
Okay.
You might want to check this move order, but again, if he goes bishop f4 and just rook d1, you go b6, bishop knight bd7, and here knight e5, right? Because otherwise not many moves here for white. But knight e5, take, and I think this, if I remember correctly, this knight g4 is interesting approach.
Okay.
Where you just want to sacrifice your knight and open up the king, right? Stuff like
I
this.
see. Okay.
So I can give you some guideline
behind. Could we before we finish, David, could we just have a very quick look at maybe like in 5 minutes the red team move order, and just you introduce me to maybe what are the sidelines and what are the stakes, but very briefly, and maybe next time we talk.
We go into more detail, because this definitely requires it's an
Yes.
entire new topic. And now we got to understand a little bit of the Catalan. So I will probably show you with the move, and there is C4 already,
Yes.
okay? Because white can decide to do like start with G3, C4 first, or G3 and then C4.
Yes.
So if he goes with G3, I mean, you do the same thing, right?
Yes.
And now if white goes D4, it's C4 is same position, right? So he can do like D3 here, but
This
it's
okay,
again,
it's King's Indian.
It's not very dangerous. So I prefer to show you where if he goes C4, because that's
Okay.
very similar to what we have seen, right? So if he decides to go, you do the same thing everywhere, like pre-move,
That's
bishop
what I love.
E7, castle. Okay, D4 again, always transposing to the main line, right?
Okay.
Goes castle. And now if he doesn't want to play the Catalan, he can play B3, right? This is double fianchetto.
Yes.
Can play Queen C2 first. I mean, these are all positional moves, but this is not a good move, right? Queen C2.
Okay.
And also can play D3 here. It's a very
Okay.
modern approach. I play
Wow.
so I'm playing this with white also because I like to deviate. I like to mix up things, right?
Yes.
He can play D3, and then he can play knight E5. So these are also like interesting new ideas.
Wow. Okay. So here we will have to check next time those like B3,
Yeah.
Queen C2, Knight E5, and D3.
Yeah. So usually if white plays all these like moves, what black tends to do is normally if white doesn't push D4, I push D4 or like C5 and D4, right? And try to get that kind of like Benoni, like reverse Benoni structure.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Like even
So
with the
if
tempo
yes.
down, right? Because if white
do we have
doesn't
to go first D4 or first C5? What would you go first? For instance, after B3, I know both moves are possible, but do you like to go D4 right away, or what's the difference? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, so the main difference between D4 and C5, after C5, if you play C5,
Yes.
okay, there's a potential he takes on D5 first.
Ah, okay. He can.
And
play
this is a
something
very
different.
positional approach because if you take with the pawn, this is like Tarash,
Okay.
which you
Wow,
don't
okay.
play, right? So it's a
I don't
Tarash.
play.
So it's,
Ah.
and then if you take with the knight, then he goes bishop B2 and knight C6, and now D4. And then you got some kind of passive position, right?
I see.
Take,
Okay.
take. I mean, I'm not sure you like these type of positions.
Oh, of course I don't.
This is like where white gets all the bishops opened, right? All both
Yes.
bishops open.
So D4
So,
we cut some ideas for white.
yeah, so D5 you immediately make a deal here that okay, you want to play the Benoni structure, and then C5 knight C6, and then it's okay, it's a Benoni, like a very complex position. You don't allow this C takes D5, right? Because if he takes on D5, he takes plays B3, you don't push the C5 anymore, right?
Ah, wow.
Because there is Catalan, there is this Tarash, right?
Okay, those kind of thing I need to understand. Okay.
Because now you can also decide to go some rook e8 and I don't know, maybe c6, bishop d6, knight bd7, and play normal positional play, right?
Solid position. Okay. Okay, so
Like
next time we talk about those moves.
Yeah. So these, it's very complex. There's a lot of ideas, and you must know. I will introduce you the Benoni with white. What is because if you understand, if you are aware of these ideas from white's perspective, you can use it reversed way, right? Even if it's a tempo down, but it's the most important stuff to know, right?
Yes, I was playing Benoni with black actually when I was younger, so I know a little bit, but okay.
Okay.
Will be nice to have
do some update, and also
yes.
these sidelines here, also some sidelines without c4 if white doesn't play c4 but
of course, yes.
plays d3. This is the only reasonable move, right? I mean, play d3. And
what about b3? B3, I wouldn't know what structure to choose also.
I mean, you can probably just do the same c5, right? And bishop b2, castle, and if c4, d4, right? The same thing.
Okay. And
I mean, if he doesn't play c4, then what else? So
and if he plays d4, it's kind of a strange.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure this. Maybe knight c6. This looks like, I mean, nothing scary. This. So
okay, amazing.
I guess c4. You even get d4 maybe something.
Okay.
But only d3, which is some kind of would like to transfer you to some c5 Sicilian, like the English attack, right? But yeah, I have some nice sideline there too, which doesn't follow those typical routes. Right? So
Wow, amazing. Thanks, David. Was
Hopefully,
nice refresh of this Catalan because I haven't checked it for a long time.
yeah,
But
it's more complex than it looks. I would say that way. Okay.
yes,
So you must be aware of a lot of stuff, and also I think it's a good transition to go to this, to understand this already, how they, how they are related, and how I can try to use one different move order just to trap you, right?
But thank you because it's so useful. I know that step by step I'm understanding like more and more the like timing of the moves, like different versions of the structure. So yeah, I think it will be so useful for.
Yes, and I think it's worth spending like more time like we did today on more in the middle game, because okay, let's say you know the move orders, but then you don't know what to do in the middle game, right? So if you don't
Yes,
understand if it's here what to do, if it's there what to do.
yes,
So I think that's
yes.
probably
Hopefully
more.
we can study it. Yes,
Yeah,
more. Yes, of course. Wow.
sure. So
Maybe
yeah,
we do a lesson beginning of next week if you are available. Like I don't know.
yes, we can
We'll chat.
do.
Yes, offline.
Yeah, we'll chat about that. Yeah,
Okay.
so hopefully everything made sense more or less.
Yes,
Trying
yes,
to
yes,
be as comprehensive as possible.
yes.
So
No, no, no. It was perfect. I learned so much as last time. Thank you so much, David.
yeah, no
Okay.
problem. Road to IM. Let's go.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll chat.
All right. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll keep in touch. Okay.
See you. Thanks, David.
Thank you to everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
bye, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Ouais, guys. Ok, attendez, je remets la. Yes. Bon, merci à tous d'avoir suivi. Hein. J'ai pas trop lu le. J'ai lu vite fait le chat. J'essaie d'être focus. Je sais pas à quel point vous avez réussi à suivre, mais franchement, ouais, c'était très instructif. C'était pas facile. Peut-être que j'aurais dû réviser un peu plus ce qu'on avait fait parce que c'était maintenant il y a presque un mois. Donc, j'avais pas tout de hyper frais dans ma tête. Mais OK, là, si je révise, aujourd'hui ou demain, à nouveau, ça va être bien et puis il faut jouer des games. Salut, Anaïs. Salut à tous dans le chat. Salut Josok, salut Maki, salut Monsieur Zamit. Ouais, franchement, c'était lourd. Salut le Viftor aussi. Ouais, tu trouves qu'il va vite, Viftor? Ouais, OK. Ouais, moi, des fois, je trouve que, je veux pas faire le mec, hein, mais OK, genre, là, aujourd'hui, vu qu'on avait déjà vu, en fait, il y a des moments où il pourrait aller plus vite, pour moi, ça serait OK. Mais après, c'est top parce que du coup, comme ça, peut-être vous pouvez, vous accrocher et suivre. Mais franchement, ce qui c'est vraiment instructif. En fait, ce qui est étrange, c'est qu'il y a des trucs, des fois, je sais déjà, mais par contre, il y a des trucs, je découvre complètement. Et donc, en fait, c'est bien qu'il ait une vitesse de croisière, parce que comme ça permet. Ok, évidemment, sur les trucs que je connais déjà, je suis en mode, ok, bon, ça, je sais déjà, genre, j'ai hâte de savoir la suite. Mais en fait, sur les trucs que je sais pas du tout, des fois, je suis en mode, ah, ok, vas-y, laisse-moi une seconde pour. Donc, franchement, magnifique. Après, des fois, moi, en fait, ce que j'aime bien parce que des fois, quand on allait un peu loin dans les lignes et tout, comment dire? Genre, moi, j'aime bien retenir ma mémoire, elle fonctionne comme ça. Genre, il faut que ce soit hyper synthétique, sinon je retiens pas trop. Il faut que ça soit hyper synthétique. Mais OK, là, c'était parfait. Franchement, je trouve que c'est un trop bon coach, franchement, c'est magnifique. Et en plus, les amis, je sais qu'il y a un truc qui va vous faire plaisir. Je pensais à vous aussi. Parce que là, OK, Catalane, je suis pas sûr que tout le monde, là, vous rencontrez pas, pour les joueurs débutants intermédiaires, vous rencontrez pas tous les 4 matins, hein, la Catalane. OK, moi, je trouve, c'est vraiment important sur les ouvertures de D4, je galérais. Et en fait, petit à petit, on est en train de récupérer le retard là-dessus. Ouais, je suis d'accord, Josso. Il y a tellement de move order et tout machin que voilà. Mais par contre, OK, sur D4, les structures de D4, j'espère que vous captez les. Moi, je commence à capter en fait un peu les enjeux parce que je comprenais vraiment rien. Et en fait, avec les noirs, David, il joue aussi la carocane. Et en fait, quand on aura fini la catalane, moi, je me dis pourquoi pas ajouter aussi la carocane dans le road to GM et il nous montrera la carocane. Sauf que carocane, évidemment, je connais déjà pas mal de trucs parce qu'en général, mes élèves, je leur montre carocane. Et donc du coup, Caro-Can, ça va être top aussi et je pense que ça va servir à beaucoup plus de monde. Ouais, on est en mode Mark Landers, les amis. Bon, franchement, c'était top. J'ai hâte de refaire un live bientôt. Là, franchement, je vous dis la vérité, je suis KO. Je sais pas si ça s'est vu ou pas, mais je suis complètement KO. J'ai beaucoup d'heures de sommeil à rattraper. Donc, ok, mais dès que ça va un peu mieux. Déjà, demain, il y a un live, hein, il faut que vous sachiez ça. Demain, il y a un autre live, cette fois avec Gabriel. Je sais pas, j'étais pas hyper motivé là en ce moment, donc je me suis dit, vas-y, je prends un ou deux coachings, ça va me remettre dedans. Donc demain, je crois que c'est 18 h. Je crois que c'est à 18 h. Demain, il y a un live coaching tactique avec Gabriel. Je n'ai pas fait de tactique depuis une semaine. Je vais essayer de bien dormir cette nuit, quoi. Bah, c'est toujours important, Donut, de pouvoir jouer, surtout dans les échecs actuels. En 2024, si tu joues tout le temps qu'une ouverture, tu te fais cibler et il faut être capable de varier dans les échecs modernes. Donc voilà, moi, petit à petit, j'étais vraiment une cata. J'avais 0 ouverture. Là, je commence à être solide sur une ou deux lignes. Et là, on est en train Là, on était avec la Catalane en train plutôt de boucher les trous de la raquette. Mais là, en apprenant 4 carreaux cannes, en fait, on va commencer à essayer de piéger les adversaires et de brouiller les pistes. Donc, il faut qu'on arrive à faire ça. Ouais, je te jure, Joe Sox. Là, en fait, j'avais un peu oublié là, les KD2, KC3, machin. J'ai pas redemandé question de base parce qu'il me l'a déjà montré. Peut-être je vais re-regarder le live. Peut-être regarder le live qu'on avait fait, le premier avec David, pour se remettre en tête tout ça. Merci Toshiro. Ouais, il est très sympa, David. Au-delà d'être le coach, là, c'est un très bon ami aussi dans la vie. On se voit souvent pour faire du sport ensemble et tout. C'est un mec hyper sympa et très fort aux échecs. Même si son classement est low, vous pourriez dire, ouais, c'est un GM à 24 et tout, mais en fait, il s'en fout un peu. Des fois, il fait deux boulots. Des fois, il travaille en bureau la journée et après, il va faire une game de 5 heures. Donc, c'est pas étonnant qu'il drop quelques points. Merci pour le Prime Joe Sox. Ouais, ça va être. J'ai été pas mal occupé, mais il faut que je réenvoie à la personne qui met les vidéos sur YouTube, tout. Et puis voilà. La team, c'était incroyable. Moi, je vous dis à très très vite. Merci à tous ceux qui ont regardé. Alors, je sais que... Ok. Merci à tous ceux qui ont envoyé les subs. Franchement, merci à tous. Merci à tous ceux j'ai vu qu'on fait la pub pour le club. Incroyable. Merci, la team. On se retrouve demain, 18 h, pour le cours avec Gabriel, le cours tactique. Ciao, la team. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Prenez soin de vous. Profitez du soleil. Si, Toshiro. Je crois qu'il a posé l'ADEME là, il n'y a pas longtemps. Donc, ciao la team. À très vite. On se retrouve demain. Passez une bonne après-midi. Ciao. C'était un plaisir. Ciao, ciao les amis.